Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point. What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Puncher's Point. We are fresh off of the Naoya Inoue versus Alan Picasso fight, and to no surprise, the monster reigns supreme again. Naoya Inoue defeats Alan Picasso to retain his undisputed Super Bantamweight championships in a unanimous decision. To me, that is the surprise of this entire night. The fact that Naoya Inoue went the distance with Picasso, the fact that he didn't knock him out earlier, because I thought it was going to be an 8th round knockout. I thought that's how Inoue was going to finish the job. Obviously, Picasso, he's a strong guy. He's a tough guy. He took a lot of grueling body punches, as you can see in the photo. So credit to Alan Picasso for staying in this fight. However, it did not matter because Inoue promised that he was going to get the win. He promised that that belt was not going to go into Mexico. And that's exactly what he did. So with all that being said, as we go on through this episode, we're going to be talking about the things that Inoue did well. We're going to talk about game plans, what Picasso could have did better at. We're going to be talking about what's next, whether that's Inoue versus Nakatani or if there's something else on the table. We're going to talk about all those great things. But let's kick straight into it. We got the strategy grade. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm going to give the strategy grade a 7.5 out of 10. So as far as the keys to victory that I had for Naoya Inoue, I mean, they were pretty simple. It was chain combos on the inside, which I feel like Inoue did a good job with. I feel like most of his focus was going to the body. The other key that I had for Inoue was frequently target the body, which is exactly what he did in this fight. He kept on targeting that body. He predicted that he was going to knock out Picasso to the body. Obviously, he didn't knock out Picasso, but he went to the body a lot, and he hit him with some grueling body punches that would have put any fighter down. But Picasso was a warrior. He hung in there, and he toughed it out, and he was able to go the distance. And then last but not least, split the guard, which he did a lot of. Overall, throughout this fight, he really targeted that body early, and you could tell Inoue made it a priority to target that body early. Maybe it was in hopes of tiring him out. Maybe it was in hopes of knocking him out. But regardless, Inoue made it his number one priority to target that body. While he was doing that, obviously you can't target the body the entire fight. You can't throw to the body every single time. He was splitting the guard, and he was using a lot of combos to split that guard. Obviously, we would talk about his right, but surprisingly enough, in this fight, he used his left hand a lot. He used his left hand a lot more than his right. And I said it in the prediction episode that you can't point to one punch when it comes to Inoue. You can't point to one punch and be like, that's the punch that you got to watch out for, because every punch that Inoue throws, you have to watch out for. And he did a very good job of using his left hand, specifically the left hook. He had moments where he clipped Picasso, but overall, I would say those are the two factors that Inoue did a very good job of, was going to the body and basically hitting him with the left hook. And you could tell that it was definitely a problem for Picasso. You can tell that those punches, Picasso was feeling them, but Picasso didn't give up. And then obviously the jab. We talked about Inoue's jab. He was very consistent with that jab. You know, there were times where he would throw that jab to the body. There were times where he would throw that jab up top. And it seemed like every combo was either started with a body punch or a jab. And throughout the fight, that started forcing Picasso to back up. That started forcing Picasso in tough areas. And Inoue just made it a priority that every single round he's going to punish him. Now, as far as how I viewed the fight, I had a 119-109 Inoue. I gave Picasso the last round. That was about it. There were some people that gave Picasso the 6th round, but in my opinion, I gave that to Inoue as well. You can make an argument for the first round, but I had a 119-109, or to kind of break it down or simplify, I had it 11 rounds to 1 Inoue. Now, some things that Picasso could have did better at to make this fight closer, or to potentially gotten the win. Again, I gave the keys to victory that I had for Picasso. It's no surprise. The first key to victory was use your reach to force Inoue to overshoot or overreach. Picasso really didn't use his reach too well in this fight. Again, you are the taller fighter. I would have expected that to be a benefit. He really didn't use his reach, and I feel like the reason why is because Inoue was so fast. His punches were coming in so quick that Picasso really didn't have time, or he couldn't time a lot of the punches that he would be using his reach for. That was a problem with Picasso, was he wasn't using his reach effectively. but it was because Inoue was so fast, because Inoue was so strong, because Inoue was able to shrink the space on him so quick. Look for that left hook. And there were moments where Picasso landed that left hook. I mean, don't get it mistaken. There were a lot of the times where Picasso would start landing punches, it was with that left hook. Or if Inoue was right in front of him and they would scrap onto the inside. But he did land that left hook a few times on Inoue. He did land that left hand a few times on Inoue. And you could tell that though that was the punch that was keeping Inoue back. So that still remains a weakness for Naoya Inoue. So I will say he did a good job with that. And then last but not least, stick your punches, throw some combos, and slip out the way. See, the problem with Picasso was just expecting to get his points by scrapping onto the inside with Inoue. And when that's not the case, I said it before, you have to stick Inoue with some punches, and you got to also move and slip out the way. And the problem was Picasso wasn't doing that. Picasso wasn't slipping out the way. He wasn't moving around the way he should have. And again, it's all a credit to Inoue for cutting the space on him, shrinking the ring, doing all those things that Inoue is so great at and so elite at. But at the same time, Picasso, he just really wasn't slipping too many punches out there. And one of the weaknesses that I pointed to Picasso was that his lack of head movement. Again, I think it's going to take somebody with some good head movement to give Inoue trouble. And Picasso was not that guy. And in my opinion, I feel like if we saw Picasso use that reach, if we saw him stick Inoue with some punches and then slip out the way, I feel like this would have been a lot closer of a fight. But regardless, Naoya Inoue went in there. He did what he had to do. Obviously, he didn't get the knockout. And I believe because he didn't get the knockout, because he might have gotten hit with more punches than what he expected against Picasso, he said it wasn't his best performance. But overall, Inoue had a masterpiece of a performance. And again, I named it Inoue Paints Picasso because obviously y'all get the joke, but that's what he did. He painted a masterpiece out there in that ring. For 12 rounds, Inoue created a masterpiece. He was in there, he dominated, he controlled the pace of the fight, and overall, he went in there and he proved to Picasso that there are levels to this. And Inoue did a great job of going to the body, using his jab effectively. And overall, just using that left hand and clipping Picasso with that left hand in many situations, chaining his punches together. And when you put all of that together, Inoue really did create a masterpiece out there. So as far as strategy, I'm going to give it a 7.5 overall. When you combine the two strategy, I feel like that is fair for them. Now, as far as excitement, it was an exciting fight, but overall, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I mean, we had to watch this fight at 7:30 a.m., 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, if you were watching it from the West Coast, you're waking up at the crack of dawn, maybe even before that. So we're waking up early. We're all tired. And if there's one fighter that we wake up early in the morning for, it's Inoue. And in my opinion, it was a good fight. It was exciting, but it wasn't anything where I'm going to be like, wow, this was a fight of the year candidate. I'm not going to say that when it comes to this fight. I think what made the fight so exciting was the output that Inoue was putting out. I think the masterclass, again, if you are a fan of the sport of boxing and basically that certain style of boxing where you're outclassing your opponent for 12 rounds, it is an exciting fight. But obviously, there weren't really too many exciting moments. I'm not going to lie to you guys. All the drama happened before the fight. I don't know if y'all saw it, but there was that whole controversy with Naoya Inoue and his hand wrap. Obviously, in Japan, the hand wrap that they prefer is the stacking method, which is basically when you take the wrap and you continuously stack it onto the hand. And Picasso's team went in. They were like, do not do that. We can't do that. And obviously, in case y'all didn't know, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not too familiar with this method, but the only two places where you can use this method is Las Vegas and Japan. Everywhere else, it's not a legal method. So obviously, being in Saudi Arabia, they told him you had to wrap it a different way, which I believe he did. I believe they got it all resolved. And regardless, he was going to go in there and he was going to put up a master class regardless of the hand wrap or anything like that. So that was the drama around the fight, if there was any. Obviously, him and Picasso had a little bit of trash talking, but regardless of that, when we're talking about in the fight, There weren't too many exciting moments, although it was an exciting fight. It was fast-tempoed, it was a fight where you can keep your eyes on it and you can enjoy it and you can respect the fight itself. So, as far as excitement, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Now, we go to stakes. You got the Undisputed Super Bantamweight Championship on the line. So, whenever there's an undisputed title on the line, I automatically give the stakes an 8. And then you got to think about what you add to it. So, there's really not much more besides that as far as stakes, what's on the line. There's the mega fight on the line with Junto Nakatani. They both had to win this fight. He's one half of creating the puzzle. Nakatani's the other half, and we will cover Nakatani, so make sure y'all tune in for that as well. But as far as stakes, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I feel like the Nakatani part of this is more towards the impact grade. And overall, Inoue had to go in there. He had to have a great performance against somebody like Picasso, and he went in there and did that. Obviously, there's levels to this. Picasso, this is his first championship fight, so we didn't know what to expect when he was going to step into the ring with somebody as strong and powerful, quick, athletic as a Naoya Inoue. And then we saw them get into that ring, and Picasso, he held his own in some moments. Obviously, he got outclassed. We went 12 rounds with Inoue, which is what a lot of opponents can't say about Inoue. MJ obviously went to 12 rounds with him. You got the Undisputed Super Bantamweight Championship on the line. You have Naoya Inoue's Riyadh debut. There were a lot of Japanese fans out there supporting Naoya Inoue. But as far as the overall stakes grade itself, I got to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because besides doing your part in creating Inoue versus Nakatani in the future, there really wasn't too much more on the line in this fight. So in my opinion, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. And then last but not least, impact. Here is where it gets high. The impact, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And the reason why is because now since Inoue did his part, he defeated Picasso in dominant fashion. There's not going to be any excuses on who won this fight. You retain your super undisputed bantamweight championship. Now, there's one fight to make, and that's between you and Nakatani. Now, I'm not going to lie. Inoue said that he could use a little bit of rest, and he does deserve it. Actually, shout out to Naoya Inoue because he is the first fighter in 42 years since Larry Holmes to defend his championship successfully 4 times in a calendar year. The first fighter, I'm going to repeat that. He is the first fighter in 42 years since Larry Holmes to defend his title successfully 4 times in a calendar year. That's absolutely amazing. The fact that he's active that much in a calendar year going up against tough competition, some of them former champions. I mean, we got to give Inoue all the credit in the world right there. So that just adds on to the impact in itself. This is how Naoya Inoue is changing the game. And in my opinion, as of right now, he's number 1 pound for pound in the world. I know a lot of y'all want to argue Usyk. Obviously, Terrence Crawford's retired. In my opinion, Inoue is number 1 pound for pound in the world. So as far as impact, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think that this performance just stamps a lot of things for Inoue. It stamped hits. He etches his name in history. It stamps a future fight between him and Nakatani. It's 9 out of 10. The only thing left is to make that Nakatani fight happen. We get the overall grade. The overall grade is actually an 8 out of 10. This is one of our higher grades. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I do feel like the grades are fair. However, I do feel like we've also covered some bigger fights this season. And it's something that when I get all the grades together and I post them, obviously the grades are final. I can't change them. But it's going to be one of those things where I look back at it. I'm going to actually have a debate with myself on whether or not it deserves to be this high on the list. Regardless, it's 8 out of 10. That's where it lands on the list. And overall, shout out to Naoya Inoue on defending his Super Bantamweight championships. The last question for this episode is obviously, is Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani next? Me personally, I think that's the only fight that makes sense for Naoya Inoue. There was the fight with Junto Nakatani, which wasn't as wide of a margin, which wasn't as dominant on his part. We saw a lot of weaknesses with Junto Nakatani, and I'm not going to cover them all. That's going to be for a different episode, so make sure y'all tune into the Junto Nakatani versus Sebastian Hernandez post-fight episode. But regardless, that should be the next fight to happen next. I know a lot of people are going to say that they want to see Hernandez have that rematch with him because it was a good fight and they feel like Hernandez won that fight. However, in my opinion, the commentators are right. Junto Nakatani got bigger fish to fry. The longer we wait for the fight, the worse it's going to get. And you can look at the Junto Nakatani fight and get all your thoughts on that. However, in my opinion, I'll repeat it when I make the episode, but this isn't Junto Nakatani's best performance. I think he was too focused on trying to get the knockout, which is why this fight was so close. But this really does create an interesting fight. It really does. And this is the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. So in my opinion, we need to see this fight. We have to see this fight. I know that a lot of people feel like Hernandez was robbed, but we got to see this fight. Nakatani and Inoue has to happen, regardless of who y'all believe is going to win. And as a matter of fact, please type who you think is going to win in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Inoue versus Nakatani, it has to happen because not only are Japanese fans and Asian fans anticipating for this fight, but the boxing community is in desperate need of an actual super fight. And there is not a bigger super fight to make, in my opinion, in boxing right now than between those two. It has to happen. This is the number one fight that I've been wanting to see for the last 3 to 4 years. And then obviously in the future, you got Bam Rodriguez coming into the picture. So I do believe that these fights are going to happen a lot sooner than later. But Junto Nakatani and Naoya Inoue, it's been long overdue. Again, both top ranked. Now, since both of them have shared a card on the Ring magazine, they've shared a card in Saudi Arabia, they've shared the stage, they've done all these things. It's time to make the fight happen. There is no more excuses at this point. That should be the next fight to happen. However, I will say this. I do expect this fight to take a little bit of time. With Inoue saying that he would like a break from boxing, and with Nakatani, with what happened to his eye, I mean, his eye blew up like a balloon. Obviously, it's going to take some time for his eye to fully recover from that. I do believe that we're going to be waiting. If I had to make a prediction, I do think that we're going to be waiting about 6 months to see this fight happen, maybe 3 months to get this fight confirmed. So I'll be patient when it comes to the negotiation process of this fight. Once they say that they're in negotiations, that's when my patience is going to run thin, which means once you say you're in negotiations, this fight needs to be finalized. That's all I'm saying. So I do believe that Inoue and Nakatani, they are going to fight. I do believe that neither one of them are going to take a fight in between that time. I do believe that the next fight for both of them is going to be each other. So that's the way I look at this fight. Shout out to Naoya Inoue on retaining his belts. As far as Alan Picasso, I'm not going to lie. I would like to see him and Hernandez scrap it. I do think that would be a great fight. I do think that you could put it on that Japanese super card if you wanted to, as far as like the co-main event or on the undercard. I do think that both those guys would bring it. I think both of these guys have grew their fan base by fighting Inoue and Nakatani. So yeah, Picasso versus Hernandez would be a good fight, and I would like to see that. But with all that being said, only time is going to tell what happens next. But while we're waiting, make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. I appreciate everybody for tuning into this episode. Make sure y'all like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure y'all follow the podcast platforms and the social medias. Make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. Make sure y'all come back here for the Junto Nakatani versus Sebastian Hernandez post-fight episode, which will be uploaded shortly after this episode. And with that being said, make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point and make sure y'all continue to stay on point with the Puncher's Point.